Hey guys, Monkey AU here with another video, and today we're going to be looking at predicting cancelled UFC fights. Now, as the name suggests, these are going to be fights that were scheduled to happen, not hypotheticals, but were actually going to happen, but were scrapped. And we're going to predict what might have happened had they actually happened. First fight, Nate Diaz versus Dustin Poirier. This was set for UFC 230 and was cancelled due to Poirier sustaining a hip injury. Now, my prediction of the fight, I'd say Dustin Poirier by decision, because at this point, in my opinion, this is around this time is when Dustin really started to peak in terms of boxing. You know, I don't think it totally peaked until the second Conor McGregor fight, but this is really close to when Dustin Poirier vs Max Holloway 2 happened, and in my opinion, that is some of the crispest boxing I've ever seen in UFC. Still, he would have been fighting Nate Diaz, so obviously it's basically impossible to knock him out. So that's why I say it's a decision. Now, what could have also happened is maybe Nate Diaz might have been able to submit Poirier, which could have been a factor for other opponents like Conor McGregor, obviously, but I don't think it would have happened because Poirier is also quite good on the ground and has some submission victories of his own and is able to scramble pretty effectively. Well, now he is. Maybe back then he wouldn't have been. I think Poirier would have just 30-27'd Nate Diaz. Nate might have had some moments. There would have been some back and forth, but still, I think Poirier takes the win by decision. Next fight, and probably the fight I wish happened the most. Man, I wish he got to fight Khabib, because in my opinion, I think he would have won. Anyway, this was set for 2 UFC fight night. I think it was for the finale of an Ultimate Fighter, so that would have been interesting. Then there was a fight night. It was scheduled for UFC 209, 233, and then 249. First, it was cancelled due to a rib injury. Then it was cancelled because Tony had, I think, water in his lungs. Then it was cancelled for 209 because of a weight cut gone wrong. 233 was injured because Tony tripped over some cables. And then for 249, neither fighter could make it out of their country to the Middle East to fight due to COVID. Still, in my opinion, I think this fight really depends on when it takes place, because I think the later it happens, the less likely Tony is to win. So in my opinion, I think Tony's best chance of winning this would have been around UFC 233. Matter of fact, I think it would have been UFC 233. I think Tony would have been the guy to cut Khabib, right? Because the Khabib was undefeated and no one was ever able to bruise him or do anything to him. I think Tony would have been unorthodox enough to be the first man to do so. He had some vicious elbows. He would have been able to hit Khabib with spinning things on the inside, on the outside. And when in the clinch, Tony would be able to do all kinds of things. And also, Tony has a mean submission threat. Those D'Arce chokes are iconic. And he very easily could have, well, not easily, but he could have grabbed one, certainly, if Khabib was shooting for a takedown against the cage. Still, though, I doubt Ferguson would be able to submit Khabib, nor do I think he would have knocked him out. I think Tony would have won this by decision, because there would have been some back and forth. Khabib might have won a couple rounds on the floor, but I think Ferguson gets some cuts. He probably outstrikes him, and he even could go for some submissions. And because of that, I think Tony would have won this fight by decision. Next fight, Max Holloway versus Khabib. This was set for 233 after Tony had dropped out. They were scrambling for an opponent, and Max stepped out. But I'm pretty sure it was cancelled the day before the event because of a bad weight cut sustained by Holloway. Still, in my opinion, I don't think Max was quite as good as he is now back then. I really don't think Max would have been able to sustain the wrestling of Khabib. Now, do I think he gets submitted? No, but I really don't think he would have been able to win this unless he just outboxed Khabib, which I doubt, because Khabib would have just shot for takedowns. And Max doesn't really have the same submission threat as Tony does, nor can he work off the cage necessarily back then. Nowadays, totally different story. And also, even if this fight were to happen in the same circumstances, this is on a week's notice or something, which is just ridiculous. There's no way this would have been prime Holloway fighting. Still, I don't think he gets knocked out, nor do I think Holloway gets submitted. Actually, maybe he might have been submitted, but still, for the sake of this, I'm going to say Khabib would have won this by decision. Next fight, Islam Makhachev versus Charles Oliveira 2, the rematch. This was set for UFC 294, but was cancelled a week out, or I think 2 weeks out, due to Oliveira sustaining a cut above the eyebrow. In the first fight, obviously, it ended very early. It was a round 2 submission. But I think the key to this loss was the fact that Charles did not respect the striking of Islam. And because of that, he was caught. Also, Charles did not have the urgency to get back up on his feet, because with most fighters that he had fought up to that point, Chandler, Poirier, Gaethje, none of them went to the ground with him. None of them, right? But Islam did. He pushed the agenda, he got that submission, and he made Oliveira tap. In the rematch, I think Oliveira would have come with a very different game plan. I think he would have kept it more on the feet and trying to implement D'Arce chokes against the cage when Islam was shooting him for a takedown or guillotines. Still, I don't think Oliveira would be able to beat Islam because unfortunately for Oliveira, he gets knocked down in basically every single fight he has, except for the Arman fight, which is pretty surprising. Because of this, I think Islam's striking is only getting better and better and better. His wrestling is already incredible as it is, and his submission ability on top of that. I think this would have gone to a decision, but would it have been close? Maybe. I think Charles could have won 1 or 2 rounds, but Islam's probably the greatest fighter ever in the UFC, and because of that, it's going to be tough for anyone to beat him. Next fight, Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler. Now, this was set for UFC 303, but was cancelled due to McGregor sustaining a toe injury, which is pretty ironic because back in the day, he made fun of RDA for pulling out of a fight due to a toe injury. Initially, I said that Conor McGregor would have knocked out Michael Chandler, or in previous videos I've said that, but now I'm really not so sure because looking back at it, Michael Chandler was really going at it at the training camps. He was strong, he was ready. I think he bulked up to welterweight appropriately. He did everything right. He didn't have any episodes of partying around or doing this, doing that. And still, in every single fight, he basically nearly knocks out his opponent, or in the first round, but then slowly loses the pace and then makes some dumb decisions and would later lose. Against McGregor, I just don't know if he's taken the fights as serious as he should have, and especially considering he's got other promotions and other ventures and other habits that keep him away from the cage. I really don't think Conor would be the prime Conor in this situation. I think he'd be subpar in this one, and I just see him getting knocked out. You know, it's just Michael Chandler's such an animal, and if anyone can do it, Michael could. I do hope this fight gets rebooked eventually, just for the sake of it, because yeah, realistically, McGregor can't really fight anyone else unless it's Max Holloway for a BMF rematch, but I really don't see that happening anytime soon. So still, I'd love to see this fight be rebooked, maybe sometime next year. So yeah, that just about does it, guys. That was predicting UFC fights that were cancelled. It's a real shame those fights got cancelled, especially Ferguson and Khabib and Poirier and Diaz. Those would have been great fights. I would have loved to see them. Yeah, so make sure to like and subscribe, leave some comments, maybe discuss some other fights that were cancelled and what you guys think of them. I'll be uploading more videos in the future, and yeah guys, thanks for watching.